When Jordan comes to town, I want to come and show him this.
Awesome.
Set up my photog.
Fox 10 investigator Justin Lum here, coming to you from the Fox 10 studios. You're watching coverage of the Doomsday murder trial, the final chapter, Arizona versus Lori Daybell. As you all know, she is accused of conspiring to commit murder in the attempted shooting of her ex-nephew-in-law, Brandon Boudreaux. And what a morning to unpack. First off, I'm joined by Special Projects Executive Producer George Obie, and we have a special guest, Nate Eaton, News Director of East Idaho News, who was in the courtroom with us, has been in the courtroom for all of these trials. And so thank you for deciding to stop by and talk to us about, I don't even know, we're still absorbing what happened this morning with Lori Daybell as she goes back to jail sick. And then she really did look not good at all. Right. And she got emotional with the judge. I mean, just what are your takeaways from this morning, Nate?
Yeah, we should still be in that courtroom to discussing or watching jury selection. She came in, wheeled in actually, in a wheelchair, although by the time we got in the courtroom, they were already underway. They were already talking about it, and the judge was asking her how she felt. Lori said she was nauseous. She had a headache. She didn't feel well enough to even move from her wheelchair to a normal chair in the courtroom, and kind of went back and forth with the judge. You know, this is the second day that he's had to send the entire jury pool back home, and he really didn't want to do that. He asked Lori if maybe her advisory attorneys could help with jury selection, and she said that she didn't want that. So now we wait, at least for a few days, to see if she can get better.
And it was so interesting, you know, we're all sitting in different spots in the gallery, but to provide people context and to set the scene, you have Brandon Boudreaux and his family in the front, and he's in his suit ready to go for what we think is official jury selection. We have a pool of about, 54 to 57 or whatnot jurors that are ready to be selected and questioned. And we knew something was off with Lori Daybell as we walked in and the judge was asking her about her symptoms. And she said she was nauseous, had headaches, had chills. And so already we're thinking, well, is this going to get delayed again? And Judge Boreski even said that he was embarrassed. And he told the jurors when they came in later that, once they get seated, he'll get them donuts. He said this never happened in his career, and he wants to get this trial on track. And there's so much to unpack here because Lori Daybell did not want her counsel to start without her and do the voir dire. She wanted to be there. And you had this contentious exchange yet again between Daybell and Boreski, where she asked, are you going to drag me back here in on Wednesday? Because I don't know if I'm going to be better by Wednesday. You can come to my jail cell and see for yourself. And he said, I'm going to pass. I mean, these two have gotten to know each other within this courtroom over the past year or whatever it's been. And it's just, I don't know. It's so interesting.
And she has accused him of being unfair to her. And we didn't really see this side of Lori during the first trial. And the judge, you can understand his frustration. He wants to get this thing on the road. They've had this scheduled. The jurors have had to come down there. And he did suggest to her, well, could your advisory attorneys help us pick the jury? And you really don't need to say much when you're there. He said the last time during jury selection, you maybe spoke for 10 minutes. Could you just sit at the table and work with them and pick those jurors? And she was adamant that they, number one, not choose the jury for her, and number two, that she be there. And she said, I have a right to choose my own jury. He did, Justin mentioned it, and she was hard to hear at points, at least from where I was sitting. She did mention at one point, or he told her that I'm still going to be the judge on this. And I don't know if he was making it clear to her that if you're doing this as a delay tactic, it's not going to work. I will still be the judge on this, whether we have your trial next week, next month, or in August. So for many people that are like, she's trying to get a new judge, well, he made it clear he is sticking with this case.
And I was going back and forth with you on our Slack message and filling you in. And we're not surprised, but I mean, yes, in the moment, you're like, this is wild that this is happening. She's not ready to go. But just from the newsroom, you guys were talking about this. Cameras not rolling, obviously, in the courtroom. Just it's such a weird day again.
Well, and we've seen a number of these things happen in this trial where whether it's the myriad of motions she's filed, whether it's the back and forth. We saw it late last week. Nate, you mentioned it. I mean, the demeanor that she's had with Boreski and how calm he is. I would wonder, he obviously did not walk in today expecting this to be the next issue in all of this. I'm curious what you guys listen to him talk to the jury. You get a sense, I think, to see the real Justin Boreski in this. But I'm curious to see, how did the jury, potential jurors, how did they kind of, because a lot of them didn't know what was going on, right? They're outside the courtroom. Then they're brought in. I'm curious to hear what you guys picked up from him when he's talking to the 60 or so that were gracious enough to come down here this morning, only to be told quickly, hey, you can go back home.
They seem to take it in good stride, actually. You'd think they'd be annoyed. He was very apologetic to them. He said, I'm sorry, as Justin mentioned, this has never happened in the history of my law career. We are going to have you guys come back on Wednesday. He didn't explain what was going on. And he also made it clear that before they came back in, if Lori was going to be in the courtroom, she needed to be out of the wheelchair. And she would not move. She did not want to move to the other chair. So instead, Trina Kay suggested that maybe all of the parties leave, and that then the judge could just address the jurors directly. And he said that, if you're picked for the jury, I'll make it up to you and give you donuts. And an elderly woman on the front row said, that'll do it. So, I mean, they kind of laughed, and he explained it well to them. The annoyance on his face seemed to be held for when the jurors were not in the room. At least that was my observation, that he seemed quite annoyed that we had yet another delay. And I think also that he wasn't informed this morning that, before all the jurors came down, that he wasn't given a heads up so that he could have told them to stay home.
Denise in the chat, Denise Kodekas, I hope I'm saying that right, mentioned that you didn't bring donuts today.
I did not.
Maybe that's why things went off
bad luck
the rails. You got to bring
Denise.
the donuts, and Boreski's talking about bringing the donuts. Nate, I want you to stay on with us as we have our panel on. We've got our three experts today. Hello to Benjamin Taylor, criminal defense attorney, Rich Robertson, private investigator with R3 Investigations, worked with Brandon Boudreaux on his case as he had just been shot at back in October 2019, and the Judge Mel McDonald, a former prosecutor for the county attorney's office, former U.S. attorney for the District of Arizona, and judge, as I just mentioned. I first want to ask Mel, you're getting caught up, but again, Lori Daybell, sick. She was in an MCSO wheelchair, slumped, covering her face to the gallery. She just was not having a good day, a worse health day than Friday. And here we are. Even Judge Boreski saying he hasn't seen this before. What are your thoughts as a former judge?
Well, I wonder if she's hoping to get a screenplay to get attention for some upcoming movie. Anything she does is, I think, for theater. To be in front of a wheelchair, in front of a jury, trying to evoke sympathy. And I think she realizes, and the tragic part of this is that she can actually, I think, in many respects, control the flow of the case. The judge can't go if she's sitting there telling him that she's sick. I hope the judge orders a physical examination of her, have specialists go in there, get her symptoms, do the testing, so that if she's playing the jury and the court for whatever reason, that they call it out. I think at some point in time, if she's acting, he can compel her to move forward.
Hey, Rich, you've been following this case for a while now. Are you even surprised at this latest development?
Well, no, not really. As the judge says, Lori is always dramatic. You can always expect drama whenever she's involved. But at the same time, these kinds of things happen in trials. There's so many moving parts. So many people and it creates a problem in the courtroom. It creates a problem for these prospective jurors. One of the issues is going to be they're going to start losing prospective jurors. And so I think it's going to be. It doesn't surprise me that Lori's got this drama.
And Benjamin, we saw the advisory council, or basically Daybell, saying that they weren't comfortable or willing to do the questioning of the jurors without her. They're not necessarily her attorneys in this case. She's pro se. So is that uncommon? What do you think about that? Them basically saying we're not going to handle that part for her, even if she wanted us to.
I've been advisory counsel for some of my clients, and a lot of times because Lori is the main witness, the main attorney, she makes all of the decisions. So the advisory council, they probably are like, I don't want to touch this. I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to touch this. She's her own attorney. Let her do her own grave digging, per se. So they don't want to do that. So I totally understand the reasoning why they want to make sure that Lori picks her own jury, has her own say, because the advisory council comes in right now in the middle of jury selection. Lori can always stand up tomorrow or next week and say, you know what? My advisory council picked my jury. I didn't pick my jury. I didn't get a fair trial. So if I lose, it's my advisory council's fault. So That's why the advisory council is like, hey, you know, and then Judge Boreski has to be careful here too, because she is her own attorney. These are appealable issues, and Lori Vallow, even though this is crazy, it is somewhat a unique strategy because she might be trying to set up some appealable issues by saying, "Hey, judge, you went forward without myself there. You let my advisory council pick the jury. I objected, so I should get an appeal or a new trial if I'm found convicted."
Good points there. Now, I want to show you guys our poll right now. We have a poll up. We've asked this question over these last two trials. Will Lori Daybell testify in this trial? And before we even get to that, we need her to be healthy. But at this point, almost 400 votes, 61% no way, 24% say I don't even think she knows yet, 15% say yes, definitely. So if you guys want to jump on that poll, feel free to leave some comments and vote on that. But Nate, at one point, Judge Boreski did want to go forward. He said, what can I do right now to get this ball rolling, even though you can't be here? Can I get through my questioning with the jurors? And Trina K, the prosecutor, seemed to have a lot of suggestions that he listened to. She was really trying to find a solution to get this going, but also, you know, allow Lori her rest because she is representing herself. And like Benjamin said, there are appealable issues if they don't, you know, consider this.
Right. And the judge seemed to say, well, how about I just do my portion today where maybe we can whittle down this pool of 54 even further so we get it a little tighter. Lori didn't want to go for that. Trina K has had to juggle her case with witnesses flying in from out of town, from Idaho and other parts of the country. And she said, I already had to, you know, adjust this last Friday. I need to do it again. I need to kind of have a plan. So it sounds like should court resume on Wednesday, that then trial will be held on Friday when originally it was not supposed to be held. They'll start a little bit earlier. Maybe the days will go a little bit longer to try to get this done by next week. And then if that doesn't happen, I don't know. I mean, it could be originally it was going to be the second to last week of June as well. Maybe that will come back in. So she was kind of at a loss. I think the judge was too, and Lori was adamant that she has her right to defend herself. She at one point burst into tears, started to cry, and said, this is a lot of pressure on me. You're pressuring me to be ready by Wednesday, and I don't know what to tell you if I'm not ready, and I want to perform at my best," asking kind of for the judge to have sympathy. I don't know if that worked as much because she said, if I'm not better by Wednesday, what are you going to do? Are you going to haul me out of bed and bring me down here? And he said, yes, I am. You are defending yourself. You need to come down here. So,
yeah. And it was just so, again, that comment of saying, you can come check me out yourself and tell me if I'm good to go. And he said, I'll pass on that. Right. And so we've just seen all kinds of interactions between them. It's been so interesting and obviously somewhat frustrating for the court as we are just trying to get this trial underway. I mean, how sick could she be to have to be placed in an MCSO wheelchair and not be able to walk or move out of it and get in another chair just so the jury could see her and not, you know, be clued in that she's you know, an inmate. They see her as a defendant representing herself in civilian clothing. But yeah, she did not look good today, at least from which we saw. Judge Mel, have you ever had an interaction like this with the defendant that just seems to always have something that you have to deal with, you know, a curveball?
Well, a couple of thoughts on that. I think the judge has every right. I mean, she may be legitimately sick, but the judge has every right with this case pending to direct physical examination of her, to have medical people go in. He should not, and I think will not allow her to take control of the case. If she continues to linger, he can direct and have a medical exam. But there's one thing that I think is absolutely paramount to consider. She is looking at multiple sentences in Idaho, life without parole. She will never get out again. She's got a pending sentence in Arizona for the conspiracy to murder her husband. Even though she hasn't been sentenced, I trust that she will never get out again. That said, the risk of error in this case, if she were to have an appealable issue, on a 1 to 1,000 is about a 1. They could drop the case and she's never going to get out. There's nothing more the penal system can do to Lori Daybell that it has not already been done. So my feeling is, if she tries to take over the case, if she's feigning, if she's trying to get sympathy, this judge has every right to step in. I think he will. He wants to make sure there's a record on it. He wants to make sure that he's got medical backup, but then he can go forward. And I hope that it does. And if she's playing a game, I hope she shuts it down. If she's sick, I hope she gets better so we can go and give Brandon his day in court.
And maybe that should be our poll question. Is Lori actually sick? Because a lot of people in the chat box right now, they just don't want to buy it. I mean, we saw what we saw. If she is not, then that it was a great acting job, because she sounded sick. She looked terrible as she was wheeled out in that chair. Rich, we saw Brandon Boudreaux and his family. What do you think it's like for him? As you know him well, and just how this is just another delay, and he's been waiting for his day in court.
Yeah, obviously it's frustrating. It's start and stop, start, stop. He has been waiting an awful long time, and he's a solid guy. He thinks, I'm sure that he's sitting there thinking, well, it'll happen. We just have to kind of put up with this. One of the things I was thinking about from the court's perspective is the judge ought to be making sure she's not contagious or infectious. If she has something like COVID, those are the symptoms that she's expressing, and COVID has been in the jails. I think there's some caution that needs to be exercised here, just to make sure that she's not contagious and going to create a bigger problem in the courtroom. So to the extent that the judge can order some kind of testing or medical examination, I certainly don't know that from a legal standpoint, but it seems like for the sake of everybody in that courtroom, they might want to do that.
Yeah, that was one of my questions that we were talking about before we came on here. What happens if she gets better, but her attorneys all fall sick now because they're in close proximity with each other in small rooms in the courthouse? They're at tables like this, close together. That could create another delay, and then you end up with the whole courtroom getting sick. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But these jail cells, I'm sure, aren't the most healthy places.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah. That would be another just crazy thing to happen if, defense attorneys, counsel. We were all in this room together, you know what I mean? So it's just, let's hope that we all come out okay, especially both parties, especially Judge Boreski. But we have that interaction between Daybell and Judge Boreski as she tells him how sick she is. Robert, let's take that. Oh, we don't have that yet?
One second. Yep.
Sorry about that. Well, we're going to get to that in a minute. But Benjamin, have you ever been in a situation like that?
No, I've been in a situation like that, and like Justin, my advice to you is better take your vitamin C and zinc and get healthy, because if you're in there, who knows what you might have. And Rich made an excellent point. Those are, the courtroom is big, but it's not too big. It's still a nice, intimate setting, right? So if she's breathing on people and if she truly is sick, who knows what could happen. But yes, I've been involved where jurors get sick, or the opposing counsel, like the prosecutor, even the judge gets sick. Like, so delays do happen in court, and right now we're trying to decide, is this a true delay? Is she really sick, or she's not? So the judge can definitely say, Lori, when you go back to your jail tonight, we're going to have a doctor come and visit you and take your temperature and give you a COVID test, just to make sure you're not contagious. So, whether or not she refuses, we'll see there. But the judge can ask for a test to be done, and it's up to Lori to decide, she's going to take it. But yes, it's going to be very interesting to see how sick she is and when this trial will really resume in the future.
Yeah, we witnessed Pamela Hicks, one of her counsel, place a trash can next to her. And so we were ready to see, hey, Lori Daybell could vomit in the courtroom, and she says she's feeling nauseous. Anything could happen, and if she needs to be quarantined. Obviously, they're in isolation in her cell, her jail chamber where they're at. If this is something more serious, we don't know exactly what she's dealing with, but these sound like what you would have with the flu. She says the chills, headaches, and all that stuff, and maybe her body's aching and all that. She literally said she couldn't even move forward with, some of the questions to the jurors, and we know that she didn't go too long last time. So we could see certainly could see a delay. I just don't think that we'll have jury selection on Wednesday. What do you think? It doesn't see another day and she'll just be like much better. I don't buy that happening if she's sick.
Oh man.
I mean, if she.
Oh, I don't know. Go ahead.
Oh no, if she's sick, yeah, no. I mean, she can't go. I mean, and the judge has these appealable issues. So, like I said, Judge Boudreaux has to play very careful on deciding: are we going to push forward with this trial even if she's sick? Or are we going to hold back and decide what should we do here, or should we play the safe route? I mean, these jurors they have busy lives too. And these jurors are on hold too, and some of these jurors might have to drop out because of this whole delay.
It seems to me that this is the best time for this to happen, rather than having an impaneled jury and opening statements and then have it happen. This seems like a time. It's if they have to send this jury panel home, delay the trial, and start over with a new panel, they're probably better off rather than have it start. It would be even more of a problem.
So right now, you guys are looking at video of the courtroom from earlier. Now, you don't see the general public and the media back there, but this may have been happening when the record started right before we walked in.
Yeah, it looks like we're about to walk in now.
So you guys are getting a look at a very pixelated view from the Maricopa County Superior Court, and you're going to see us all walk in and sit down, and we probably weren't even staring at Lori yet, but she's there right in the middle, in the front at that table. And she was in that wheelchair, and right away as we were hearing the words symptoms, we were like, okay, so I guess she's not feeling better at all, because all indication was we were a green light for jury selection. But you guys are getting a behind the scenes look of what that is when we come into the courtroom and get ready to really get proceedings started. We have that soundbite ready, Robert. Let's take it.
I'm sick, Your Honor. I've been sick all weekend. I let my team know yesterday I was sick.
Can you please pull the microphone a little closer? I can't hear you very well.
I'm sick. I've been sick.
Have you put in tank orders to get treatment?
Yes.
Are you being housed in the infirmary?
Nope. I'm housed where they put people in quarantine anyway. I'm housed alone. They would not move me from where I am.
Have they tested you for any communicable diseases?
No.
All right.
You asked me to let my team know. I let them know yesterday at 9 a.m. that I was still ill.
Sometimes we're in positions where we have to proceed when we feel under the weather.
It's not just under the weather. I'm very ill.
Do you have copies of tank orders you put in for treatment?
Not with me. I put it in on the tablet.
Is the DO able to check whether any tank orders were put in?
I can pull that there, Judge, but I don't know when she put it in.
What's that?
I think it takes about 24 hours.
They haven't even answered my tank order yet. It takes them a long time.
She's requested to be in the tank, and she's...
For those people, maybe you guys, what is the tank? I mean, this is a term I haven't heard. Are you familiar with it?
My understanding is this is the area where they keep people who are ill.
Need to be isolated.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And she mentioned that's where she's been.
She's already isolated, though, in a sense.
Right. And we don't know what access she has to, again, the tablet. Clearly she can do stuff, but, it's not her proper work area in her cell. I would imagine, and those of us who have been sick with this, that you don't get a whole lot done. And if you're battling a fever and whatnot, not making excuses, but clearly she had a rough weekend, and this, not a great way to start her Monday.
So she let the team know yesterday at 9 a.m. I didn't hear this part, but so she notified them, but she was still brought in today. Judge Mel, what do you think of that interaction and her plea?
Well, I think there's obvious areas of concern. I feel very strongly that the judge needs to take control of this. Medical reports need to go to him. If they're not having the proper type of doctor in there, they need to do the COVID test, everything else. If she's ill legitimately, I'm almost wondering if resetting the jury for Wednesday might work, because if she'd been sick for a week, it gives her an avenue to say, well, gee, I'm still not back to strength. Probably the prudent thing to do would be to put it out a week, monitor this. You could always have the jurors call in every day to see whether you can put that up. But I think there's been some outstanding points raised. You don't want her to make other people in the courtroom sick. The drama of the wheelchair is almost too much to fathom. But bottom line, I think that Judge Boreski will take control of it. I think he's got to make sure, get these reports daily, have people in there to actually get a diagnosis, to make sure it's something that's not transmittable to others, and then to move forward as soon as they can.
And she just confirmed that she hadn't been tested for those diseases, and she's in the courtroom. I mean, that's concerning. As a defense attorney, Benjamin, what would you be saying to the judge if you could, address him in there from that side of things?
I mean, if my client is sick or even allegedly is sick, I'm definitely talking to the judge and saying, Judge, we have to call a timeout here. We have to delay this jury selection, and we can't move forward because my main person, my client, is sick. And because Lori's representing herself, it's going to be hard for her to defend herself if she truly is sick. But to Mel's point, right, if this is some sort of drama or some sort of, fakeness, the judge will take control of this and have tests made and be like, hey, right, your temperature seems well. You don't have a fever. You don't have any COVID. There's people in the jail, I'm sure, monitoring to her, too, to seeing how she looks. People in the jail are saying, you're looking great. You're doing jumping jacks, right? You're walking around fine. We're going to go ahead with this trial. So the judge will definitely get some feedback from people in the jail cell, either the sheriff deputies or whoever, to determine whether or not we're moving forward with this. Is this a fake sickness or real? But yes, as an attorney, you're definitely trying for a delay if your client is sick.
And Rich, it totally seems that even whether she's faking it or not, that this is derailing the flow of, obviously you said it, and I agree, it's better to get this out of the way now before we've even selected a jury. But now all we're talking about is she sick or not sick? When is this going to start? We're not even talking about the legalities of this, the case, and to bring the focus back to that. We know that witnesses have been, like Nate said, we have some from out of state that are flying in, and now this throws off maybe the order or how things start up after opening statements. Rich, what would you say about that as they try to lay out the dots, the connection between Idaho and Arizona, and how the shooting was carried out by, allegedly, Alex Cox?
Well, as Ben and Mel said previously, these kinds of things happen in trials. Trials are messy. There's so many people involved, and things happen. I was involved in a murder case 10 years ago, and we were halfway into it, and the judge collapsed and never came back. They did CPR on the judge in the courtroom, and in that case, we were in the middle of a trial, so everything had to stop for 2 months, and a new judge brought in. And it was the same jury, amazingly. But that's why I say in this case, if there is some kind of a delay, somebody's going to have to make some decisions as to whether it's better to just hit the pause button, bring in a new jury panel, even if it's in a month or two, and have a better chance at having a smooth presentation of the evidence rather than this start and stop, because it is disruptive to both sides.
Well, and one of the things we have talked a lot about, at least in the 2 weeks leading up to this, we know how quickly the last trial went. There was 6 weeks given the time frame. It went 2.5 weeks, almost 3 weeks. One of the things that Boreski had emphasized when they were going through the questionnaire was, we want to let jurors know that this trial, in theory, is going to be done before the July 4th holiday, because it's hard enough to find adults with kids that can be on a jury pool during the summer, especially those adults who may have vacation plans. Now we're going to be delayed almost a week here. I would imagine that Boreskes still want to be on the time frame to get this trial done by the end of June. But I do wonder, is he rethinking some of that? Is that part of the thought process now that he knows we're going to be behind at least 4 or 5 days? But the plan would still be to get this done before the end of June. So that way you don't have to go to this potential jury in a couple of days and say, look, there is a possibility we could be here the week after July 4th.
And one of the things he made clear to her today was, if you're trying to get another judge, and I'm saying this in so many words,
Yeah.
I will be the judge on this case. Like,
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are like, oh, she just wants a new judge, and she knows that he's rotating out in a few weeks. But he said, regardless of when this trial happens, I'll be the judge. So he's sticking with the case.
And we know he has other cases. Like
Right.
we learned last week, he had other cases to deal with, including a female defendant. So it's like, this is not his only case. And again, they know that the clock is ticking. Who knows? Maybe Lori puts up more of a defense this time, and instead of the 2.5 weeks on the previous trial, we could stretch into 3.5, maybe 4 weeks.
Real quick, Nate Eaton he's got a million things to do, and we thank him for the time that he spent with us after today's court proceedings. And we'll see you on Wednesday.
All right.
I
Thanks,
guess we'll
guys.
see you on Wednesday with donuts.
Oh, yes. We'll get a review of those, yes.
Yeah.
Appreciate you,
Thanks
man.
for having me.
All right, so back to the panel. Just anything else that sticks out to you all as we get into the meat of this case? I know we've been talking about Sickgate, but anything else that you're looking forward to seeing? Go ahead.
Well, I think Rich hit it right on the button. If you're going to have this issue, it's better to have it now, because you've got a panel that hasn't been seated permanently. I think what you do is just modify the questions. If this lingers on, if she's sick for another week or week and a half, before that jury is seated, they're going to be able to get a panel that will tell the court, we will be able to go beyond the 4th of July. I think, fortunately, if you're in the middle of a trial and you have this kind of a timeline, then it can really be problematical. But thank goodness they haven't actually seated the jury. So it's frustrating. There's witnesses that have flown in. The delay is frustrating, but it could have been a lot worse.
I want to ask Rich. We just got some rulings regarding Lori's motions to preclude evidence from Alex Cox's data. She also talked about the Tesla door and window not being stored or kept. Also, the Jeep being unlawfully seized. She's really throwing everything at the wall. But to put that all in perspective, Judge Boreskes says no to those motions. You're not precluding evidence from Alex Cox's phone. That's not hearsay. Obviously, we had this whole hearsay issue in the last trial regarding what statements he made after the shooting to Chandler police, but this is a different case. Obviously, how the Jeep was seized by Rexburg and then basically given to Gilbert, and then the whole Tesla door and frame. Just what was your focus on when you talk about these cars? Where was your focus on most of the time in the beginnings?
Well, in the beginning, obviously, the goal was just to find people and figure out what the heck was going on. So it wasn't so much, from my end, it wasn't, analyzing the evidence, the physical evidence at that point. I am surprised, frankly, that she's waited this long to raise some of these issues. There's a lot of trials, a lot of the major heavy lifting is in pretrial motions, just like this, and it's attacking some of the ways that evidence is collected, how it's preserved, how it's analyzed, doing independent testing of some of this, raising some questions about cell tower location, whether or not it's reliable. There's all kinds of issues that should have been raised previously. If these are just now being filed and just now being ruled on, that's why the judge is denying them without any kind of hearings. I mean, there's definitely things that could have been raised. I was surprised they weren't raised in Charles Vallow's case. I was surprised forensics weren't attacked more aggressively up in Idaho in her other murder cases. So I guess it doesn't surprise me that none of this was being done then, and it's not being done now.
So really, it's the timing. She had a long time to work on this case and was already representing herself several months ago. She could have filed these motions. And also, Judge Bresky says you need to attach the said warrant that you're talking about that you have issues with, or attach the documents that you're poking holes at. You can't just tell me that this was done wrongly or unlawfully, and I'm going to believe that. You need to have sufficient evidence before we even bring up a hearing. So, Benjamin, is just another reminder. Do you think more of a reminder in this trial that she's really not fit to represent herself as her own attorney?
Yes, I mean, that's always been the downfall for her in this case. And before you file any motions, there's usually deadlines. So usually you have to file any pretrial motions, usually about 20 days before the trial even starts. So if she's filing motions in the middle of trial or just right now at the 11th hour, of course, the judge is going to deny that because both sides, the prosecution and defense, they both have chances to respond. So this shows you that she's not a skilled attorney or she doesn't really know all the law by filing motions that you see all of her motions seems like they're getting denied. So we'll see what moves up forward in the future, but I'll see if more motions get filed. The judge will probably say these is untimely. You should have filed these weeks ago, and I'm going to deny your motion.
And Judge Mel, what point do you release the entire pool of jurors? Because every time Bresky has excused them, and every time he will during trial, he's don't look up the case. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if people looked up the case. So at what point, if this sickness goes into the end of the week and so forth, do we have new questionnaires sent out? I mean, or will that even happen?
I don't see that happening. I think you've probably got a sufficient jury pool to select a jury. And again, what I think you want to avoid is to make sure that the jurors, before they come downtown, that they check with the court to make sure through some means of communication whether the trial is going to be going or not. I really believe, because it's been set, because this is the last in these trilogy of cases, this will be the last one, and because of the sacrifice that the witnesses have made, that Brandon has made, that his family's made, I think they're going to make every effort to move this case forward. And once he's got medical documentation, if she is faking this or if she's exaggerating it, he's got every right to say, we're going. And if she wants to sit in a wheelchair and there's no justification, he has every right to say, you're going to sit in a chair like any other person in this case. He's got the authority to take control. And again, I hammer home this point. If by chance there was some kind of an error made, it's almost going to be harmless. She's never going to get out again. The earlier Arizona case, the Idaho cases, she is going to die in prison. And so my feeling, he will be firm with her, keep the jury as long as you can. If it turns out that it's catastrophic, that you're losing a huge percentage, then you tell the jury, we're going to restart the case, set it out maybe for the fall.
Because if I do know Lori, I mean, she probably wouldn't want to start opening statements or even this jury selection until she feels 100% healthy. So when will she acknowledge that and confirm that with Judge Bresky, that I'm good, I can represent myself, I don't have this nausea, I'm ready to go, so that she can go forward? And so we'll see if that's Wednesday. It's just I'm being a little pessimistic, but I don't think Wednesday at 10 a.m. it happens, but we shall see. Benjamin, I want to ask you, like last Thursday, we had this hearing regarding the aggravation phase, and she just didn't seem to understand what the judge was explaining to her about if she's found guilty in this next case, why they go forward with aggravating factors. And Trina K said she has to cover her bases for appellate reasons. Just talk about the aggravation phase and what it means.
So in her last trial, when Lori was convicted, she had an aggravation phase. However, Lori didn't stand up and really fight. So she pretty much just waived that. So once a person gets convicted, there's a little kind of like a little mini trial where the prosecutor stands up and says, this is the reason why, to the jury, you should aggravate her sentence, meaning giving her more time in prison. And then Lori gets a chance to stand up and say, well, this is why you should mitigate my sentence. You give me less time because of these factors, right? So this happens after a person is found guilty. So this is something that Judge Boudreaux was explaining to her. But as you saw in the first trial, she didn't even have that hearing because she seemed like she waived it. She didn't even stand up and fight for herself. So this shows you again why she shouldn't be representing herself and have an attorney to represent her for her.
Yeah, she kept asking for a probable cause hearing, and he said that wouldn't happen. I mean, what if you could explain? I know it's hard to read her, but explain what she was trying to explain with trying to get a probable cause hearing that would lead to the aggravation phase. It was going in circles that day. If anybody wants to jump in.
I will say, if Rich or Benjamin tell me what she's thinking, I am going to refer them both to psychiatric care.
I'm not going to try.
I don't think anybody will.
Well, this goes to all that stuff we've been talking about previously. Is that she hears all these legal terms and she just throws them out there as if they have some kind of meaning. I mean, we're way past probable cause. So I don't know what she's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the judge is sitting there trying to think, I got to keep a straight face. I can't bang my forehead down on the desk, and just say deny and time to move on. I have a legal question though for Ben and Mel. What about the whole speedy trial issues? She's been raising this from the beginning, that she's been rushing all of her cases forward, arguing that she's not going to waive her speedy trial rights. I don't know what the calendar looks like on this one, but are speedy trial rights implicated if this is delayed?
Not if the delay. If she's the purpose of her health issue, they're wanting to move forward. And so, like anything else, if she's causing the delay, if there is a delay, it's her fault. I would again highlight and I've made this statement from the beginning, a person that represents themselves as a fool for a client. There are two courts that you're appearing to, the jury, the Superior Court, and the appellate courts. Every time she fails to file a timely motion, she's lost it. An attorney will pepper the case with every conceivable argument for that second court to find reversible error. She lets opportunity after opportunity go flying by because she's so smart that she thinks she can represent herself. She's waiving these objections. There are testimonial objections in a trial that she could often make. If you don't raise the objection in the trial, you waive it. So the bottom line is in answer to Rich's question, no, as long as the trial is delayed because of her medical issue, that doesn't deny a speedy trial. And the fact that she's insisting that she control the case, many opportunities for error that she might otherwise have, she's giving away. So bottom line, I think it will start. I think they're not going to send this jury away. But again, it depends on whether she's got a legitimate illness or not.
So she has obviously the right to represent herself, but clearly has not done a good job. We haven't seen one witness called in the last trial, the failure to basically even get those notices out to witnesses in time so the state could, review those witnesses. And then here we are, and she's shown with her motions, even though she claims that it's biased, that she rarely has a motion granted because of the lack of legal merit. That's according to Judge Boudreaux. And it's obviously it shows us, I think gives us an appreciation for the court of law and actual legitimate defense attorneys, public defenders. Those are not easy job, especially in the public. I mean, Benjamin, you worked as a public defender. You don't get paid like a private attorney either. I mean, you get the client, you get the defendant, you get. I mean, I think this, for the prosecution side as well, an appreciation for how the system works, would you say?
Yeah, now, I worked inside both sides, the prosecution side and the public defense side too. And you do have appreciation for both sides, seeing how hard of work that happens. Because right now we see it right now in court, but there's tons of motions that happen years and years that go into these cases, and tons of work prior to these cases. And as Rich would know too, as an investigator, you have your investigators, you have paralegals, you have so many people working these cases. So some of these motions that Lori is failing on, she would have won if she had known the law. So that's the thing. A lawyer is able to cite the law and the correct law and apply the law to the facts. And some of these motions, if she knew what the law was, who knows? She would have won some of these motions. But because she doesn't know the law, the judge has to pretty much deny it if she's citing and arguing wrong law.
All right. Rich Robertson with R3 Investigations, Benjamin Taylor, criminal defense attorney, and Judge Mel McDonald. Thank you guys again for joining us on short notice, especially us not knowing what we're walking into today. And it was such an interesting morning. Thank you guys for coming on. And we will be ready to talk to you guys again when we hit opening statements. Thanks all.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Take
you.
your vitamin C.
Yeah.
I will. Yeah. So yeah, obviously some interesting times right now. We're going to get ready for our 4 p.m. newscast, our 5 p.m. newscast, look over this portion of this hearing again. But yeah, I'm not seeing or expecting a Wednesday 10 a.m. start date for jury selection with what I saw today. The hope is that we get the schedule back on track. But, luckily, we've been framed out to June 23rd, the latest on this case.
Well, and hopefully if Wednesday is not a possibility, that Judge Boreski learns tomorrow, so we don't they don't invite 60 some odd people to come down, only to be told, hey, thanks for coming down, but you're not needed. And hopefully the judge is now better briefed on her condition, or, that you don't walk in and be surprised with this. I think he would like to limit the amount of surprises moving forward. But maybe you're right. I depending on how she felt. I mean, we're talking, she looked good Thursday, and then Friday she comes in sick. So now we are on day 4 of this, whether it's the flu, COVID, or what have you. Mm-hmm. We know jails, that from I've never been to jail, but we've told it's not a place you want to be even healthy. I can't imagine somewhere you want to be when you're battling an illness like this. But again, if we don't get jury selection back on track by Wednesday, then we may not see opening arguments until Friday or even the following Monday. And again, we are trying to, the judge really wants to get this done by the end of June. So we'll see.
Yeah, I have yet to check in with Brandon Boudreaux, but I mean, he is the victim in this case. Important to focus on him, being there with his family and, waiting for 4 or 5 years to get some sort of justice or get the shot at justice. This has got to be, but he's waited a long time. So yes, it's annoying, I assume, but he's waited long enough, and this is just another. I don't think he's surprised in knowing him. No,
and we've mentioned this before. He has testified in her other trials. He's familiar with who she is and how her trials go, and he sees the light at the end of the tunnel to get justice. But he also knows this is part of the process. As you mentioned, this is a great window into our judicial system. This is how things go. Sometimes they go smoothly, and sometimes they don't. I bring up a great point. When I was in court a few weeks ago, at the beginning of the Cooksey trial, the judge in that case was sick. He showed up to the bench where they went over jury questionnaires. They heard from us, the media, and why we wanted to film the trial and have cameras in the courtroom. You could tell he was under the weather, yet still showed up and still kept everything on time. They started jury selection and opening arguments right when it was scheduled. So you get sick. This is what happens. Who knows how this is going to affect her moving forward in the case? I think it's going to be interesting, at least in the first week, how how she attacks, witnesses from the prosecution. We already know her demeanor. We saw her demeanor last week between her and Bresky. She toned down a little bit in the beginning. It may take her a week to recover from all of this. If she is feeling this bad and maybe she hasn't eaten, she hasn't slept much, it may take her a week to get fully back to 100%. And that may maybe speed things along or it may slow things down.
Yeah, and that's why I say too, like you talked about being in jail. It's a rough environment to try and recover from an illness. Let's assume that she really is sick and she's not, I think she's 50 years old at least now. Somewhere I have to check that, but I mean it's just not easy going through an illness. So I think for the reasons due to appellate reasons, you want a healthy defendant with no excuses that wants to represent themselves. So yes, it's unfortunate we have a slight delay. But we'll be covering this along the way. I'll be back in the courtroom Wednesday if everything goes to plan for jury selection. And then let's talk about even tomorrow. You've been on Fox 10 Talk, so this is a topic that we've been bringing up daily. Maybe I'll jump on tomorrow because we've basically got the off day from court to talk about this. And we will have our panel. That was just 3 of our experts, and we've got a great roster of experts. Rachel Smith couldn't make it today. She was in court before this happened, but we'll have Rachel Smith, the special prosecutor in the Idaho trial against Lori Vallow. She'll be back on this panel. We have Taylor Larson, Charles Vallow's former attorney, on deck as well, and those 3 other guests. I mean, I think it's great to have Rich Robertson this time around with his knowledge of Brandon Boudreaux's case and his relationship with him and helping him. And Mel McDonald obviously brings vast experience, and also like from the defense side, Benjamin Taylor, always great insight. So for those of you guys watching, we'll have the on-the-record episodes as well after each day in court when we are really underway after opening statements. But make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, like this video, share this. You need to know that we are in the courtroom virtually, and we'll be covering this all day whenever we have proceedings for this final trial, the final chapter of Lori Daybell. So with that said, for George Obi, we thank you for your time. For our team here, we'll see you next time.